How we doing, everybody? UFC Thoughts here, and today I'm going to be going over some of the main events for some fight nights that have been announced recently. UFC Shanghai, UFC Paris, and UFC Noche in San Antonio, Texas. Their main events got announced recently. The last time that some big news like this broke, I built an entire main card that I think could be suitable for UFC, for the events, and I'm going to do the same thing today. You know, we got some big fights announced, and some of them already have some big fights on the undercard already that'll take them some spots. But I try my best to make some, like, feasible fight night cards, you know what I mean? Like, something that we could actually get. So, let's get right into it. UFC Shanghai got announced. The main event, Johnny Walker versus Mingyang Zhang. Not a huge fan of this main event, I'm going to be honest with you. I wish that they would have done something a bit different with this main event. Zhang Weili was talking about fighting on this card. She wanted to defend her title, and I think that I'm not mad at a WMMA title fight, main eventing a fight night. I think that's actually actually pretty cool. I think that'd be a really stacked fight night if they did that. The last time they did that was UFC Noche in 2023. Song Yadong also apparently is not going to be on this card. But this is just a way to build up Mingyang Zhang, so it'll be a fun finish probably in the first or second round, very quick most likely. Probably first, because I think Mingyang Zhang has all first round finishes. But it is a Johnny Walker main event in the Big 25. Johnny Walker, when was the last time Johnny won a fight? I actually don't even think that he's won his last 3 fights. He is 0-2-1 in his last. He hasn't won a fight since May of 2023. He hasn't fought since June of last year and has actually had 2 canceled fights because of him. He withdrew, and he's getting a main event now for some reason. I don't know why, but this is the world we live in. But the co-main event that got announced is Brian Ortega versus Aljamain Sterling. I actually love this fight. I think that this is actually better than the main event. I wish this fight would have actually been 5 rounds, but they're going to give it to Mingyang Zhang just because he is from China. You know what I mean? They're going to try and stack this card with Asian talent, which is what I try to do, besides the featured fight, which has already been announced. I love this fight, Brian Ortega versus Aljamain Sterling. I wanted to see them maybe fight other people. I thought Aljamain was going to be fighting Arnold Allen and Ortega maybe fighting a Jean Silva maybe, or a up-and-comer like a Lerone Murphy. But now it seems like Arnold Allen and Lerone Murphy might be fighting each other. Lerone Murphy posted that he has a fight maybe in the signing with him versus another English fighter, and the only other English fighter in the top 15 in that division is Arnold Allen, I believe. But yeah, the grappling in Ortega Sterling is going to be very fun. I think the striking even could be kind of interesting with the boxing of Ortega and just the unorthodox kickboxing that comes from Sterling, where he's kind of like a doodle bob, where he kind of is like slipping all over the place, throwing head kicks out of place. I think Sterling might actually be able to win this just because he was able to out-grapple Movsar Evloev in certain like grappling exchanges. And Ortega, I'm going to be honest with you, he's not really looked the best in his most recent performances. He got 10-8'd by Yair Rodriguez in the first round. And Diego Lopes kind of had a field day against him. And Sterling, don't get me wrong, Aljamain isn't as, prosperous on the feet as Yair and Diego Lopes. He doesn't have that type of power, but he is very unorthodox. It's very hard to get going on the feet against Aljo. And a lot of people believe Aljo beat Movsar. I think that there's no way you can give him the 3rd round, by the way. He also lost the 2nd, I believe. But it should be a good one. I wish this was 5 rounds just to kind of see Aljo at 5 rounds at featherweight. You know what I mean? See if he's even worthy of or able to go 5 rounds like really competitively at 145. Because that was always seemingly something he did struggle with at 135 was the cardio. He always it was due to the amount of weight that he cut, but he used to slow down heavy in the end of round 3 and into round 4 and 5. He kind of had to dig deep against Cejudo, and he got lost the 4th and 5th round to Petr Yan, of course, in the rematch. But it should be a good one. I wish this was the 5-round fight that we got, because Johnny Walker, Mingyang Zhang, there's no way it goes to the distance. Like, it's just going to be a very quick fight. It reminds me of Lewis versus Tallis and Teixeira in a way, where it's like there's no way that fight's going to go long. You could have made a better main event, have Derek Lewis as a co-main event, because Derek Lewis doesn't want to go 5 rounds at all, but it's Derek Lewis. They're just going to keep feeding him fight nights. And Johnny Walker does have some, like, he got some fanfare behind him. And Mingyang Zhang has had a very good run in the UFC so far. 3-0, 3 first-round KOs. Beat the shit out of Anthony Smith recently. It should be a fun fight. Aljo versus Ortega as well. Featured fight right now, I believe, is going to be Sergey Pavlovich versus Waldo Cortez Acosta. Hopefully, Sergey is able to dismantle the bitch that is Waldo Cortez Acosta. I fucking hate this dude. He's such a bitch. But it is what I think it should. It'll be a little bit of an entertaining fight. Sergey has better striking than Sergey Spivak. So on the feet, it should be interesting. And Sergey wasn't even really able to get much going on the ground against Waldo in the last fight. But on the feet, Waldo, he's got a decent jab. It should be a decent heavyweight fanfare. Like, it should be striking combinations. Maybe Pavlovich is looking for the ground game because he was against Jairzinho. Because he was coming off the 2 performances where he got styled on, you know what I mean? And then, he kind of had to get a win to even, like, stay in the UFC. So, Waldo's like 6-1 in the UFC, I want to say. He's actually the last person to get a knockout at heavyweight. This year, he actually is the last heavyweight fight to end in a finish by knockout. So, maybe Waldo is able to pull some strings. This is short notice for him as well. Sergey, I think he wins. I think that he probably should win. If he loses to Waldo, he is cooked, and Waldo's going to get a fucking title shot. So, hopefully we don't see that. But, Sergey, Waldo should be fun. The first fight that I made, like, this is the first original idea I have for a matchup, is going to be Melchizedek Costa versus Duho Choi, or Duho Choi versus Melchizedek Costa. I think this is a banger matchup. The Chinese talent in the UFC is kind of slim. I think they're going to look to build a lot of other, like, Asian nations on this card. I think South Korea is going to get a lot of love on this card. I think another fighter you could put on here, I don't have him on the main card, is Ju Sang-yu, who got the knockout over Jekka Saragi. There's a lot of fighters that you could look to build. I think this is a main card fight. Duho Choi is obviously he's a fan favorite. Everyone loves him since the fight he had with Cub Swanson back in like 2016, 2017. And Melchizedek Costa, I think he deserves a fight like this. Melchizedek Costa, is he on a 4-fight win streak since losing to oh shit, no. God damn it. Oh, I just leaked the next fight. Casey O'Neill versus Wang Tong. I'll get into that in a second. But I feel like Melchizedek Costa is on a 4-fight win streak. He's on a 4-fight win streak since losing to Steve Garcia, Shylander Nabeki, Andre Fili, Christian Rodriguez, and Julian Erosa. And those were all very fun fights. I think that this is a very viable matchup. Duho Choi's coming off the win over Nate Landwehr at 310. Melchizedek Costa, he's usually very entertaining in there. Duho Choi is also a very entertaining striker. He's got decent grappling chops as well. I think the grappling would be very interesting if it does get into that realm. And the striking, Costa is a very tall kickboxer. Duho Choi has got the boxing to speak for itself. And then the open of the main card, I have Casey O'Neill, Wang Tong. There's no way they're going to China and not putting Wang Tong on there against a ranked female fighter. I'm putting her against Casey O'Neill because Casey hasn't fought in fucking forever, and she's ranked above her to kind of throw her up the rankings. But there isn't really a lot of like availability, I'll say, for Wang Tong come the August 23rd date. So I just thought Casey O'Neill would kind of be just a cool throw-in, kind of ranked WMMA, throw it on the main card. Wang Tong's actually entertaining to watch. So UFC Shanghai, Johnny Walker versus Mingyang Zhang, Brian Ortega, Aljamain Sterling, Sergey Pavlovich versus Waldo Cortez Acosta. These are all confirmed. Duho Choi, Melchizedek Costa, Casey O'Neill versus Wang Tong. These are actual creations of mine, and I think that they're actually very solid. Choi Costa could be a fight of the night contender. I think that the grappling would be very interesting with a tall kind of guy, but who is kind of a pushover in the grappling in Melchizedek Costa. And then Duho Choi, just kind of an older, he's South Korean as well, so it's, location kind of base. It's somewhere around there. They stack Shanghai with a lot of, like, road to UFC talent, and most of those aren't even Chinese fighters. They're mostly South Korean. And then Casey O'Neill, Wang Tong. Wang Tong has just got, hopefully she wins. Last time she was in China and Macau, she got knocked the fuck out, or choked out rather. But she's actually sprung some good wins since then. Bruna Brazil and Ariane Lipski or Ariane de Silva. So Wong Tong, give her another ranked fighter. Let's see what she can do. Next event in chronological order is UFC Paris on September 6th. Main event got announced as Nassourdine Imavov versus Caio Borralho. As you all know, I'm a huge Fighting Nerds fan. I'm not the biggest Caio Borralho fan or believer. I think Nassourdine Imavov is going to beat him very easily, if I'm being totally honest with you. I think that Nassourdine Imavov is still to the day very underrated as a fighter. He has one of the most underrated win streaks right now, if you're looking at it. Roman Dolidze, Brendan Allen, and Jared Cannonier as well, and Israel Adesanya. 4 top 11 wins and at middleweight, and he beat, he has 2 finishes in those wins. He should have finished Roman Dolidze. He kind of fumbled one in there. And then had the fight with Brendan Allen, which was kind of a weird fight. But Caio Borralho, he lost 2 rounds very clearly to Jared Cannonier and was still competitive with him. I think this fight's just going to be kind of a bit too much of a step up for Caio. You look at his resume so far. It took him 2 rounds to finish Paul Craig. You look at his resume before that. He lost a round very blatantly to Abus Magomedov. I know Sean did, but at least Sean finished him. Caio took him to a decision, and the second round was also kind of competitive. I think Caio Borralho is the worst Fighting Nerd just because he's not as flashy as the others. He's a bit more well-rounded than they are. I think he's a bit more... And even then, Carlos showed great takedown defense. I think this is just a bad matchup in general for Caio Borralho. Nassourdine is too fast. He's going to be way too fast for him. He's got Dagestani grappling as well, so Caio isn't even going to have that in his back pocket. He's got decent boxing combinations, but Nassourdine's better than him. Maybe down the stretch, Borralho's able to will out the last 2 rounds, maybe, because Nassourdine's only fault that he has is his mentality in moments. He he's mentally weak in moments. Like the Sean Strickland fight, he kind of just stopped throwing for some reason. The first round against Israel, he was kind of just hesitant to throw. But I think this is going to be a terrible matchup for Caio Borralho. I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to go the distance. I think Nassourdine's going to win 3 rounds very clearly, at least, maybe 4. The speed of Imavov, the grappling threat that he poses against Borralho. Borralho's never faced a crazy grappler like that in his career. I mean, Paul Craig's got great jiu-jitsu, but who's another grappler that he's really fought in the UFC? Mikhail Oleksiejczuk? Fucking Armin Petrosian, you know what I mean? There was the one Dagestani dude that he fought, was it it wasn't Gajiasulov, it was Gajiev, or whatever, the guy that quit because Borralho kneed him in the nuts or whatever. That guy was kind of a grappler, but Borralho kind of shoved him off, but that guy's kind of garbage. You know what I mean? So, Nassourdine should win. I think he should win. I think he will win. Should be fun, though. Fighting Nerds in the main event. Co-main event. The rest of this card is my creation. There are some other fights on Paris. I think Umar Sy got a fight against Brendan Ribeiro. I think that's really it. I think that Balaji Oki's also on there against Mason Jones. There's another fight on there that I can't think of. But co-main event for UFC Paris, I think this is actually going to be a stacked main card. I got Grant Dawson versus Benoit Saint-Denis. Now, there is a fight under this that I could see you putting above this. I think they're going to put Benoit Saint-Denis in the co-main event just because he is French. They're going to try and capitalize on Paris to kind of push Benoit again. I think Grant Dawson is a very viable matchup, and I think that's what they should do. Grant Dawson, the longest UFC reigning prospect ever. He's been in the UFC for fucking 7-8 years, I feel like. I feel like he's been in the UFC for fucking ever and has just kind of stayed outside the top 15. He was supposedly going to fight Joel Alvarez. Joel Alvarez, that fight fell through because he is moving up to 170. I think this is the fight you make. I think Benoit doesn't deserve a matchup against, why can't I think of his name? Mateusz Gamrot. He doesn't deserve a fight against Mateusz Gamrot. I think they should do Rafael Fiziev versus Mateusz Gamrot next. Benoit, he's coming off a win over Prepolek. I forgot his first name already. Kyle Prepolek or whatever. Grant's coming off a win over Carlos Diego Ferreira. I think this is just a good stylistic matchup for both. You have two really solid grapplers. You have a marauder on the feet in Benoit against Grant Dawson, a guy who's been shinned by Bobby Green before. But I think the grappling is going to be really stellar. Like in this fight, I think the grappling showcase is going to be wild from both. So we'll see what happens. I think it's kind of fitting that Imavov was a co-main event for Benoit, and now Benoit is going to be the co-main event for Imavov. I think it kind of is just kind of fitting. And it's also just a French fighter that you can kind of push. Featured fight, I have Jan Blachowicz versus Dominic Reyes. I have a rematch for this fight. I could see you putting this on a pay-per-view. I think it's either going to be put on this card or 320. I think this is the matchup you make next for Jan Blachowicz and Dominic Reyes. You have an older Jan Blachowicz who's number 5, stalling up the division, has just been there for years, has done absolutely nothing, is coming off 2 losses and is still number 5. I feel the same way about Rakic, but I think Rakic and Jamal Hill should be fighting. Dominic Reyes, he's on a 3-fight fucking win streak. He's killing people now. You know what I mean? He knocked out Dustin Jacoby in the first round, knocked out Anthony Smith in the second, knocked out Nikita Krylov in the first. I think this matchup makes so much sense. You have a guy like Jan Blachowicz and Dominic Reyes, they have history. Dominic's back on that career resurgence, and Jan is still that older kind of guy who went tit for tat with Carlos Ulberg. And this is a way to get Dominic Reyes back in the top 5. You have a guy like Dominic Reyes who is loved by so many fans, and you have a guy like Jan Blachowicz who's also loved by so many fans, but he's so close to retirement. I think you run this fight. You know what I mean? Just run it. It's also in Europe. Jan Blachowicz, huge fan favorite in Europe, of course, due to him being Polish. Dominic Reyes is just loved by people because he's I'm Dominic Reyes. You know what I mean? I think it'll be a fun fight as well. I think it'll be more competitive than their first fight. Their first fight was kind of a wash for Jan. I think it'll be more competitive. Jan Blachowicz is a bit older. Dominic Reyes, still I think he's like 35 or something. But Dominic, he's on a career resurgence. I think it's time to run this fight back to fully see if he's really that guy, that he's back to what everyone thought he was going to be. You know what I mean? Lost 4 in a row. Now he's on a 3-fight win streak. Jan finished him in the first fight. This could be a finish. Who knows? I think it'll be a very fun fight. The next fight, I have a lightweight banger with another French fighter, Ferezian versus Charlie Campbell. Give me a round of applause. I think I killed it with this fucking matchmaking. Ferezian hasn't fought since UFC Saudi Arabia against Mike Davis. I think you could give him a better fighter than Charlie Campbell, but the UFC lightweight division, the bottom of the rankings, 15 to 10, are very it's very availability, like I said, for Wong Tong is kind of low. Ferezian, I think, does deserve a top 15 shout, but it's just kind of weird at the moment. Charlie Campbell's 2-0 in the UFC. A fun finisher. Finished Alex Reyes. Had a very fun fight with Trevor Peek. This fight, Charlie Campbell also is kind of he kind of represents Scotland in a way, because his last name's Campbell. And Ferezian is French, and you had him fighting Joe Anderson. No, they had him fighting Matt Frivola. It'll be a step up. Charlie Campbell also kind of hasn't fought in a while. I think they're gonna put him on this card. I think this fight does make a lot of sense. You could find Ferezian a better lightweight fighter to kind of push him up the rankings a bit more, but Charlie Campbell, he's another kind of guy that they're trying to push. You know what I mean? He had the crazy fight with Chris Duncan on the Contender Series, and Chris Duncan, for some reason, is already booked. He should have been fighting on Paris as well, but Chris Duncan is fighting, he's on that fucking Amir Albazi versus Tatsuro Taira card. I forget who he's fighting. Let me check really quick. UFC Vegas 108. It's a crazy fun matchup, too. Yeah, he's fighting Mateusz Rombetsky. Dude, that's a crazy fucking fight to have on fucking UFC Vegas 108 in the Apex. But anyways, I think this fight does make a lot of sense. Anyways, next up, to open up the main card, I have another rematch. This one is kind of speculated. Marcin Tybura versus Ante Delija. Ante Delija is a heavyweight from the PFL that they just recently signed. He's apparently going to get a top 10 fight immediately just because that's how low level the UFC heavyweight talent pool is. And I think Tybura is the matchup. Delija, I think, is Croatian, I think. Let me actually check that out. Ante Delija. I think he's Croatian. Walking trouble. He is Croatian. 25-6. This is actually going to be a rematch. I think him and Marcin have fought before, like way long ago, back in 2015, in M1 Challenge League, and Marcin actually won. Delija, that's why the photo's kind of fucked up. I had to get this off of the PFL website. Should be fun. Delija, I think he's got a lot of finishes on his career. Let me check. Yeah, he's got 11 KOs, 7 submissions. Marcin Tybur's on a win streak right now against surging heavyweight contenders, Jonata Deniz and Mick Parkin. It's in Europe, Paris. Marcin's from Poland. Delija's from Croatia. It kind of just makes sense location-wise. They're both European stars. So put these two together. I think you'll get another fun fight like the first one that ended in the first round. They're both old now. I think Delija's 35. He's 34 and Tybura is like 39 or some shit. But overall, Paris, Imavov, Borralho, Dawson, St. Denis, Blachowicz, Reyes, ZM, Campbell, Tybura versus Delija. I think all these fights have a possibility of being made next, and I think that we're going to see at least 3 of these on this card. Blachowicz, Reyes might not be on Paris. They might save that for a further card, but I think 4 of these. I think Ziam's going to be on here, maybe not against Campbell, but I think that would be a very fun fight. Paris. Next card, UFC Noche in San Antonio, Texas. It's not in Guadalajara anymore. I stacked this up like it's still a pay-per-view because I think it should be a pay-per-view. There's no reason September shouldn't have a pay-per-view. You could honestly make the Paris card a pay-per-view and throw Tom Aspinall, Cyril Gane as the main event of this. You know what I mean? So I stack Noche like it's a pay-per-view, and I think they're going to stack it like it's a pay-per-view. Diego Lopes versus Jean Silva is the main event. Fucking bad-ass fight. Jean Silva and Caio Borralho fighting back-to-back weeks. Kind of reminds me of when Jean Silva fought Bryce Mitchell and then Carlos Prates fought Ian Gary. Gonna be a banger. Gonna be a slugfest. There's gonna be a huge Mexican crowd in there for Diego Lopes rooting for him. UFC Noche. I think Jean Silva's probably gonna win this. My early lean is Jean Silva winning this. I don't know if he knocks out Diego. I think he could. Diego's very willing to exchange with people, and that's one of the reasons that I think he could definitely get caught by John. But, dude, Diego's a slugger, man, and he hits really hard. And we've never really seen Jean Silva get hit crazy hard. I mean, Drew Dober was kind of putting paws on him at the end of round 2. Well, not at the end of round 2. Midway through round 2, he landed like a Superman punch that kind of shut John back, like kind of shook him back. Besides that, John's taking shots very well. He's been knocking out everybody, submitting everybody, kind of beating the shit out of everybody that he's been fighting. He's been trick-shotting dudes. And what I love so much about this fight is this is a way for Jean Silva to get to the title, you know what I mean? Like this, if he wins this, he's undebatably the next guy for the title. Other than Movsar. If Movsar beats Aaron Pico, I think that you have to do him justice by giving him a title shot. But if John beats Diego, they're going to run with Jean Silva. That's what they're going to do. They're going to give it to John. Especially if he wins by first or second round knockout. Like if he beats the shit out of Diego Lopes, which he very well could. I think that Diego will make it a bit dirty early on, and maybe we see a round 3, and maybe Jean Silva pours it on there. And then again, we don't really know about Jean Silva's late round cardio, the 4th and 5th round. We've seen Diego. Diego actually was pressing the pace in the 5th round. It's just he wasn't landing a lot. He was just walking forward and taking on shots. Should be a good one, though. I really think that this fight's going to be a crazy scrap. Jean Silva, his output might be a bit lower against Diego. Kind of reminded me of when he had a lower output against Melsick, kind of waiting for him to make a mistake, and then he kind of just, decided to win. You know what I mean? Like, you guys ever see fights like that where it's like the guy just decides to win? Like, that's what the Melsick-Bogdasarian fight really reminded me of, when Jean Silva kind of just started throwing and then he just decided to win. Crazy fight. Co-main event, you have to have an actual Mexican talent to kind of push this card up. Brandon Moreno versus Manel Kape. I don't care that Manel broke his foot. I don't care that you broke your elbow. He broke it in June 10th. Broken foots don't really take crazy long to heal. I know that it can take up to like 6 months if you break it really bad to fully get like full recovery. Manel Kape, you're a bitch. All right. Stop pulling out of fights. Fight Brandon Moreno. If you want to get back in the UFC's good graces, you know what I mean? He's pulled out of so many fucking fights. Fight Brandon Moreno at UFC Noche. There's a couple other dudes you could give to Brandon Moreno. You could do him versus Tagir Ulanbekov, I guess. You could do him versus the winner of Temirov versus Almabayev. But that's kind of late notice. That'd be really short notice for them. That's August 26th is when they fight. I think this fight's a good scrap. Manel Kape, Brandon Moreno. You could maybe even do this as a 5-round co-main event, maybe with Brandon Moreno, Manel Kape. I think it'll be a fun scrap on the feet. Brandon Moreno's very unorthodox boxing versus Kape's just very, strange, kind of like very bladed stance, kind of trying to style on people. I think it'd be a fun fight, and it's another way for Kape to get closer to the title. You know what I mean? This sets up, after Joshua Van fights Pantoja later down the year, this will set up the next guy to fight Pantoja if Joshua Van isn't able to do it. You know what I mean? Like, if Moreno wins 3 in a row, you can give him another title shot. I think if he beats Albazi, if he beats Urseg, if he beats Kape, I can understand giving him another title shot. If Kape wins, that'll continue the win streak since the Muhammad Mokaev fight. That'll be Bruno Silva, Asu Amabayev, and now Brandon Moreno. 3-fight win streak. It'll make people win 3 fights in a row at least to get a title shot again. You know what I mean? Moreno's paid his dues after losing to Pantoja and Royval. And Kape will have paid his dues since losing to Mokaev. The striking in this matchup would be fun. Even the grappling would be kind of crazy because Moreno got that very unorthodox wrestling, kind of stringing together trained wrestling, and Kape's got really solid takedown defense when he actually locks in. Featured fight. This fight was rumored to main event this card. I think that this is the next matchup anyways. Probably not on this card, but I just wanted to put this out in the air. Leon Edwards versus Michael Morales. Make this fight. Rankings-wise, it makes sense. Career trajectory-wise, it makes sense. Leon Edwards versus Michael Morales. Michael's coming off the Gilbert Burns win. Leon Edwards coming off 2 losses in a row to Sean Brady and Bilal Muhammad. This fight makes a shit ton of sense. Michael Morales is a streaking, surging contender. He just knocked out Gilbert Burns in under 2 minutes. You know what I mean? Give him a jump up in competition. And rankings-wise, it makes a shit ton of sense. Leon Edwards is, 3? Or is he 2 now? Leon is 4 now. And Michael is 7. You know what I mean? He just moved up above Joaquin Buckley, actually. Joaquin's back to 8. 4 versus 6, or 4 versus 7, rather, makes a shit ton of sense. And it's Leon Edwards, who's kind of on the downturn. Michael Morales, very young contender, 26 years old. He just turned 26 recently. I think you make this fight. I think it makes a shit ton of sense. Striking, and it's a striker-first matchup for Leon Edwards, which is what we want to see him in. You know what I mean? When he fights strikers, it can actually be somewhat entertaining, especially if they're pushing the pace on him, which Michael will do. And Leon Edwards, it'll force him to fight in a striking matchup, which Leon Edwards, hate him all you want, think he's a bitch all you want, think he's a pushover all you want. His striking is still pretty solid when he's actually able to throw. So, next fight on the main card, Terrence McKinney versus Manuel Torres. Come on, dude. I do this shit for a fucking living. Terrence McKinney just won this weekend. First round submission. Manuel Torres just knocked out Drew Dober. You want to see a fucking adrenaline dump? You want to fucking a sugary fucking a fucking Kit Kat of a fight that's super sugar inducing, but is just super fast? McKinney Torres, dude. What are we doing? Matchup makes a lot of sense. Manuel Torres lost to Ignacio Bahamondes, got back in the UFC's good graces by beating Drew Dober this past March. Terrence McKinney on a 2-fight win streak. Beat Damir Hadzovic and beat Vyacheslav Borshev. He's up there, dude. Make this fight. Terrence McKinney's fucking badass. Manuel Torres is badass. It'll lead to a badass finish either way. Either Manuel Golden Freddy's him or Terrence McKinney is able to actually do some shit. His grappling might not be as effective against Manuel because Manuel's actually pretty solid grappling-wise. But on the feet, dude, the chin of McKinney and the chin of Torres, they both have been cracked before. We'll see what happens. to open up the main card, I wanted to do a fight, but I decided not to. There's going to be Raul on here. Raul Rosas is going to fight on UFC Noche. That's just what they're going to do with him. I think you do Raul Rosas Jr. versus Carlos Vera. This isn't what I want to see. The fight I want to see them do. If you're doing a Felipe Lima Peyton Talbot fight, do Raul Rosas Jr. versus Malcolm Wellmaker. That would be sick. But I've decided not to. Raul versus Carlos Vera. Carlos Vera is coming off a knockout, or he subbed Josias Musasa, after dropping him. Josias Musasa was undefeated, so you can kind of use that as a way to be like, huh. And he went the distance with Rinya Nakamura, another undefeated fighter at the time of fighting him. Raul's not undefeated anymore, but like he only has one loss to Christian Rodriguez, and Christian Rodriguez missed weight. You know what I mean? So like you can like Carlos Vera, he's 1-1 in the UFC, 12-4 overall. He was on the Ultimate Fighter at one point. And it's also he's like an easier matchup for Raul. Actually, the grappling in this fight would be sick. It would be badass. Because like Carlos Vera is actually a very good BJJ practitioner. And Raul does kind of make mistakes in the grappling, but you know, the stand-up will be kind of wishy-washy. Carlos Vera is like Ryan Hall a lot. He throws a lot of spinning wheel kicks, but he doesn't really do a lot outside of that. Raul Rosas is still growing as a fighter. You need to keep giving him these matchups. He's coming off a fucking main card matchup over fucking, Vince Morales. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to make a matchup like this. So, UFC Noche, Lopes Silva, Moreno Cop, Edwards Morales, McKinney versus Torres, and Raul Rosas Jr. versus Carlos Vera. I think these are badass cards. You know what I mean? Let me know what you guys think about these cards. What would you put on these cards to kind of make it feasible? Because I don't want just like a solid main event. I want a good main card. I know fight nights have been seemingly taken away from pay-per-view talent. You could put literally all of these fights on a pay-per-view and it'd be sick. You know what I mean? But I want to see fight nights that are actually a main card worthy of being like, oh shit, I can stay up to 1 a.m. because these are all late cards. I mean, the Shanghai card is going to be on at 3 in the morning. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to fucking wake up that early. I might as well fucking see some shit. Paris is going to be earlier. And Noche is going to be it's going to wrap up at like 1 in the morning. You know what I mean? I want to see a card that I don't have to feel like I'm sitting through shit to get to the main event. Like Atlanta. Atlanta was like sifting through a pile of dung to fucking get to Kamaru versus Joaquin at a point. You know what I mean? Like the main card especially. So, if you like the video, give it a like. If you want to see more content like this, subscribe. Leave a comment down below what you guys want to see next. What would you guys put on UFC Noche, UFC Shanghai, and UFC Paris? I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.